Hello and welcome back to Arlene Knits and Sews. If you are new here, it would be great if you subscribed. We learn how to make new things. This is a beginner knitting tutorial channel. I've got a few playlists already, from how to cast on, how to knit. I've got how to make a beanie, how to make some nice warm mittens, and in today's tutorial we're going to learn how to make a little blanket. Object of this lesson is to learn how to add on stitches and how to decrease stitches. So we'll be knitting in a diamond shape, starting out with one stitch, casting on a stitch as we begin each new row, and then decreasing stitches as we start to end it off. We're going to make a baby blanket. If you would like to make an adult size blanket, that's perfectly fine. You'll just need to probably triple or even quadruple the number of stitches you're going to do, but maybe start with a baby blanket just to get a little practice in, and we'll take it from there. Things you're going to need to get going is a pair of circular needles. The reason we're going for circular needles is not because we're going to be knitting in the round, but because we're going to need all of the space with the cord in between to be able to gather all of our stitches, because we're going to increase up to 100, and then I'm going to see, do we need to increase more or is that enough? But we're going to have a lot of stitches on our needles, so we're going to need big needles. Oh yes, on that note, I've grabbed a US size 7 that is on the large end, just a finger for scale. And the reason for that is because I've chosen to do this with 2 balls of wool simultaneously, because I would like a nice thick blanket. In my last tutorial, how to make mittens, I go over in a lot of detail how to knit with 2 balls of wool simultaneously. So if you want to check that out before we start this one, probably go ahead and do that. To get going, I'm going to take the 2 ends of the wool and I'm going to line them up together perfectly, and I'm going to create a slip knot. In my very first video, if you go into the playlist or the catalog of videos that I've made, I show you how to do this very slowly. So if you want to jump in there and check out how to do a slip knot, that would be great. We take that slip knot and we're going to pop it onto our needle. Adjust so that it fits nicely on the needle. And we're going to cast on 1 stitch. Around, over, pull out, pop it back on. We're now going to knit these 2 stitches. And when we get to the end of the line, when we turn it around, we cast on 1 more stitch. And then you knit those 3 stitches. Then we turn it around and we cast on 1 more stitch. Just going to pull this so it looks nicer. And then knit the 4 stitches. When we begin the next line, we're going to cast on another stitch. And then knit all of those stitches. And what we're doing is we're casting on a new stitch at the beginning of every new line. You can see it's beginning to make this triangular shape, which is very cool. So a little trick that I would like to bring up at this stage is, if you're starting your new line and you can't remember if you just intuitively added on a new stitch or not, you'll be able to tell by, I'll show you now, the distance between a new stitch that's been added on and stitches that are already on the needle there's like a big gap here. So, or sorry, there's not much of a gap here. So you can see that this is quite a short little gap. And then when I knit the next stitch, it gets much bigger. And the next one, there's a wide gap. So that's how you can tell if you've actually already added that stitch or not. Because if you're like me and you're just sort of going at it and you can't remember now, did I just add a stitch or didn't I? This is how you can tell. Okay, so we're just going to basically keep going at it now. And we're going to add on a new stitch with every new row. And I'm going to check back in with you guys when we get to 100 stitches on our line.
I'm alone, I'm a broken home. I gave you all the bricks that I own and know. I'm letting go, I'm breaking these walls down, breaking these walls down. If you want adventure, then fly to home. But if you wanna travel, then go alone. Yeah, what's the point in us if I never know? Yeah, if you're gonna leave, I'ma let you go. I'm tired of the pain.
Okay, so I've just arrived at 100 stitches on the needle. You can see how big it is here. And if you look at the blanket from this point here to this point here, you'll be able to see exactly how big it's going to be. For a newborn baby, this would be perfect, but even for a newborn, I'd say this is probably going to be too small because babies grow so unbelievably fast. And I'm making this for my dog, who is a medium boy and he's already 6 months old. So this will actually be too small. So I'm going to go ahead and add on another 50 to 80 stitches and I'll catch you guys when we get there.
I'm a stone cold killer, I'm a billionaire. I got my own gold digger. If I wasn't this way, I'd rather die. Did it die, yeah. Did it die. Did it die. I'm a stone cold killer, I'm a billionaire. I got my own gold digger. If I wasn't this way, I'd rather die. Did it die. Wait. Did it die. Wait. Did it die? Whatever you want, I'll be whatever you want. Just tell me you love me or not, whatever it costs. I know I'm talking a lot, there's something I gotta get off. Don't wanna.
Okay, so I've just reached 150 stitches on my needles. And if you measure or if you look from this point here to the very corner where we began, you can see that's plenty big enough. So we're now going to begin the decreasing process. So we're going to do like this, but in reverse. And I'm going to show you how. Okay, so what you do is with your very first stitch, you go in there and you're going to actually cast that stitch off. So you knit one stitch, you knit another stitch, and then you cast that first stitch off. And then you go ahead and you knit the rest of the line. And you knit that line all the way to the end, just perfectly normally, like a regular line. Then you turn it around and you knit 2 stitches, 1, 2, and you cast that first stitch off. And then knit the rest of the line. So to recap, you're only ever casting off the first stitch. And you do that at the beginning of every line. So as we started this up, we were casting on a stitch. Now in the decreasing process, you cast off one stitch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. I'm going to cast off one stitch at the beginning of every line, and I'll catch you when we get a little closer to the end, and I'll show you how to finish this whole thing off. But as you can see, this is actually an extremely easy pattern. It's simply a process of casting on one row at a time, stitching up into a diamond shape. Show you what I mean. Diamond shape like this, and then it's going to taper down and do the exact same shape as I'm casting off. And then when you're done, your stitches appear to be diagonally shaped. So that's really, really cool. But I'll catch you when we get close to the end and we'll see how it looks and we'll take it from there.
Who's getting a blanket? Who's getting a new blanket? Is it Billy? Is Billy getting a new blanket? Is Billy getting a new blanket, my boy? Hey? Hey?
Okay, so I've gotten all the way to the end. This is my blanket. As you can see, it's quite huge, and we're now just going to cast off the last 4 stitches. We'll do that together. Just like when we started off and we were casting on, you cast off the first stitch and then knit that row. Turn it around. And do the exact same thing. And we're now down to the very last 2 stitches. So we cast that one off. And we're left with 1 stitch on our needle, like so. So we're going to cut this piece of wool, cut out about that much, pull the wool through that loop on your needle like this, and voila, we have a blanket. We're now going to work all the loose ends together. I've added quite a few colors, so I've got many of these little joineries here. You can see they're everywhere. This is going to be a dog's blanket and very soon a dog's breakfast, so it's not going to look very nice for very long, but I'm just going to finish it off properly. So we're just going to work all our loose ends in together.
Do you like your new blanket? What do you think? show everyone what you look like. Is that your blanket, my boy? Okay. Alright, so here we have the final product. It's finished, it's ready for the dog, and it's going to keep him nice and warm. In our next tutorial, we're going to learn how to make socks like this. I'm going to make an adult size, so I'll be making a pair for my husband, but I'll show you how to measure it and how to figure out exactly what size it's going to be in each part. So make sure that you're subscribed and tune in for the next tutorial where we make some cool socks.